Hey, my name is Angie, and welcome to my YouTube channel. After that lovely intro, I guess I'll repeat that my name's Angie. Uh, I'm currently a student, and I guess this will be like my booktube channel, depending on what I decide to do with it. But right now, I'm thinking reading books, since it is what I love to do, and the whole reason why I'm doing this in the first place. So yeah, I think the main reason why I'm deciding to actually do this is impulse and the need to do something as the school year comes to an end. And I really do like talking about my opinions on books, even if I don't like talking to people directly as much. So this seemed like a happy medium. And I really think that this could be like a good little out, because I'm already good at talking to myself. So I might as well try and benefit from it. I guess I have to talk about like reading now then. There was like so much buildup before I started this, and now that I'm doing it, I'm like on the edge. But I think the main thing that got me into reading when I was like a little kid was fantasy, that. Like I started off with our gateway drug here, Harry Potter. Like I went through that. I've been there. We do not like J.K. Rowling anymore. Just needed to clarify that. But I've been reading since I was like 7, 8 years old. I really tried not to be one of those people who lost it when I hit school and like when they start making you read stuff. Because most of the time I like enjoy what we read in school. Obviously, you're not going to like everything. If I met a person who liked everything out there, I would be genuinely concerned for them. Okay, this is kind of dumb, but I want to show that there's like a camera tracker thing on my tripod, and it's really funny. I can juke it out, and then it just centers right back. It's really cute, and it's like nice little lighting in my room. See that window? Yeah. When I tell you I prepared, I prepared. But yeah, I was talking about like getting into reading in school and all that. But yeah, throughout high school and all that, I am a minor. Keep that in mind. But mind. Okay. Throughout high school, I've definitely read a lot more than I did when I was a little kid, and I'm very proud of that because I have not lost my spark yet, other than like the occasional slump, and I do not plan on losing it. So, if I catch myself, I'm gonna need somebody to break me out of it. PSA. I did accidentally turn off the microphone about like halfway through the original filming of this video. So all of my footage, no audio. So if I seem little a little bit annoyed, that's why. And yeah. Okay. So the last thing I was talking about that I have audio for, I think was why I like reading. And to kind of give a spark notes compared to what I said before, I think that reading gives you a really great and well rounded sense of intelligence, no matter what you're reading. I mean, obviously, there's some things out there that probably don't teach you much, but you can learn something from almost everything. And you can read a book about anything. Most things that are out in the world, somebody's written about it, whether it's a book this thick or an encyclopedia, you know? And I think that even for the people who don't enjoy reading a physical book, there's a way for you to consume some form of literature out there, whether it be an audiobook, because all you have to do is listen to that, e-readers and Kindles. It makes you feel like you're a little iPad kid, or obviously a physical book. And for some people, fan fiction, you know? That's reading, whether it be based off of somebody else's work or an original work, you know? It doesn't matter what you're doing or how you're doing it, you're still gaining something from it. So, I'll talk a little bit about what I like to read personally, and then I guess I can go over some of my favorites, what I'm currently reading, whatever I've most recently read, all that stuff. But I'll start with the fact that I'm a big fantasy girl, but it's less of like high fantasy and super like medieval stuff. Like, I'm not super into that, which is kind of funny considering that's most of what fantasy is. But I'm a sucker for a good magic system and a good chosen one, you know, the hero's journey and all that. I also like thrillers, murder mystery. I read a little bit of sci-fi. I read a little bit of like historical fiction and literary fiction. I also I'm not super big on romance, I'll be so honest. It has to be good. Like, it has to be good writing, and it can't be like a bunch of tropes thrown together and mushed into one thing. It needs to have some sort of depth to it. It doesn't need to be like, my mom just died, and then blah, 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 and then I got hit by a car. Like, it, that sort of depth way, it can't be entirely smut and spice. Which I won't yuck anybody's yum, but I'm kind of a D1 hater of most of the book talk romance books. Have I read them? No. Have I watched plenty of videos on them? Yes. Have I seen some of these excerpts from these books? Yes. And it does not look like something I want to read. So I'll typically read a romance as like a palate cleanser or something just that I can get through quickly, but you won't catch me being super obsessive about it. I'm gonna be so for real. This is a little side note. I'm really hoping the mic on my shirt doesn't cause like constant noise because it's up against my shirt. I will be really angry. If there's any like random noise in the mic, I'm so sorry, but I'm not gonna re-record this. So what you get's what you get. So yeah, I'm really hoping the noise of me fidgeting with this remote is also not in there, but we'll see what happens. I'm using like a booktube newbie tag, like set of questions to kind of use as an outline for this video because I was not going to go completely off script. Okay, I'm not that creative. And one of them is what you think the hardest challenge will be when it comes to starting a booktube channel. Oh, I know that just made a terrible noise, but I think the hardest thing about doing something like this, for me at least, is going to be putting myself out there and actually putting this out for the public, because I'm doing this for fun. So it shouldn't be a challenge within itself, and I'm not making money, or I'm not aiming to make money, I mean. So nothing about advertising or trying to tailor this to how the public sees things will be a problem for me because I don't care. But I do think having other people see this and experiencing possible like hate and mean stuff, because I am just a girl and I'm a sensitive girly, okay? So don't be mean, please. But that's my worst fear for the most part. Otherwise, I don't really care because as easily persuaded as I am, I don't think I'm going to change my opinions for some random person online who decides to comment on a teenage girl's video. Because take a look at yourself there, bud. Maybe take a moment to reflect. I'll talk about I'll talk about what I'm currently reading right now. since it's the closest, I guess, to the present moment. But I'm currently reading The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey, and I'm not super into it right now. I'm going to be completely honest. I think it feels out of order, for me at least. I think there wasn't enough exposition at the very beginning of this book, because to give a little bit of context, it's similar to The Last of Us, where it's like a cordyceps, like fungal outbreak that causes zombies and all that stuff. And we're in a facility where there's a bunch of kids that not necessarily are immune to this virus, but instead of being completely consumed by it when infected, they still have like consciousness and act like normal kids. And being so for real, you don't learn that it's like what this outbreak actually is until a little bit into the book. And you're just kind of in for the ride for the first like 30 pages, and you have no idea where you are or what's happening, which doesn't sit right with me all that much. Because the way that they talked about how this whole outbreak happened, actually, they haven't even talked about how it happened, they've just talked about what it is. It was okay. Like, I like the way that they brought that in, but it was way too late. So I don't think this is going to be super great, but I don't want to stop. So I'm hoping it can turn itself around a little bit so that it can get itself back up there. Yeah. The last book I read before this was I think it was called Do Me a Favor. I actually can't remember the author, but I'll put it over there so that you get the gist. And it is a romance. And it was not my favorite thing ever. It wasn't super great, but it also wasn't terrible. Like, I wasn't gagging and in outrage by the end of it. It was about this woman who creates cookbooks, and she lost her husband previously, so she moves into an old relative's house that she inherited, and she finds a small town handyman kind of guy, and they have like a cute little meetup. Meet cute, that's what it's called. And it sprouts from there on. I think it was a little bit cliche for me, and I also think that it had too much modern day slang and like terms in it for me to feel like it kind of just took me out of the story. And I think that I'm also not super into like the divorcee like kind of thing where they're like in their 40s and they're like, "Oh, I'm never going to find love because I'm so old." Not the biggest fan of that. It wasn't anything to write home about, but it wasn't super bad. I think I rated it like 3 stars. I think that leaves me to go over my favorites, which I have two. And don't call me basic for this, okay? I know that they're both acclaimed and people are like, "Oh, they're so overhyped," and all that, but I don't care. You're not changing my opinion, so don't try. My first one is Babel by R.F. Kuang, because R.F. Kuang is amazing and she rips out your heart in every single book she writes. And I really like the academic and linguistic element to this book specifically, because I did just read the Poppy War trilogy, and that was like its completely different, own separate cup of tea. But the way that she involves language in this feels really intelligent. Good word. But I feel like she did an amazing job of involving knowledge and teaching the reader something while also making it interesting and having it pertain to the actual story. like especially with the footnotes and all the information that she keeps in there, whether it's a little tidbit about the story and what happens outside of it, or if it's actual information. And she handles all the ideas about colonialism and period era stuff really well. And the way that R.F. Kuang writes is also amazing. I love reading something that makes me feel smart for reading it and also teaches me a little bit. She has a way of writing that's super witty, but also beautiful and has the ability to bring out so many emotions in you, which for the most part, they're bad emotions in any R.F. Kuang book, but they're emotions nonetheless. The second book is The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, and I will not apologize because it's kind of wacky. But as a high school student, Charlie's experience is his experience as a high schooler and within the social circumstances of being a high schooler is very relatable, for me at least. Love my friends, but as a teenager, you can't help but feel like an outcast, and that's just how it is for most people. But I think that Charlie's a really empathetic character, and I relate to that personally. And the way that his emotions and his opinions about other people and his insights are portrayed through the letters and the way that he writes his letters, I think is a really smart way to dive just a little bit deeper than your typical, like, first perspective, first point of view kind of thing. And it also kind of gives you a timeline without being like, it was May, and the leaves, and the rain, and the flowers. So yeah, I really love this book, and the movie is such a great addition to it. I can't help but think of it anytime I listen to the Smiths and anything along those lines. I do have like half of these quotes around my room, so yeah. I can also talk about what kind of things I want to do on this channel for the most part. I know I said earlier you can expect run-of-the-mill reading stuff because I'm not bringing anything groundbreaking here. I'm just doing what I want. But I do want to experiment with like some of the challenge stuff once I get later on in this process because that's some harder stuff to film and edit. But I definitely like the idea of doing like monthly wrap-ups, reading vlogs, even just normal vlogs because I'm going into my senior year of high school. I will be vlogging with my friends because I want those memories. So do not expect strictly reading content on here. I do also crochet and do some other art stuff like that. So that could make its way onto here if I'm feeling fancy or if I'm getting bored of just doing book stuff. Obviously, I hope I don't, but that's the kind of stuff you can think about. Oh, and there's also like read with me videos, you know, where they like sit around in like a cozy little area and read with music and all that. So I would like the idea of doing something like that. That's just something I'd have to figure out later on. So yeah. Okay. So I think this is where I'm going to end it. Quick PSA though. I've never edited a video before. So if the editing is doo-doo, we're just going to ignore it for now because I will adapt. I will survive. And we can go through this together. It'll be our own little journey. Maybe I'll even put in a little clip somewhere in here of me going through the trenches of editing. But yeah, I'm Angie, as you already know. Like and subscribe. Can't believe I'm saying that. If you want to come along for this little reading journey, I guess, and expect more because I did actually enjoy filming this video. Maybe I'll even find somebody to do a collab with or something like that. But yeah, have a great day or night or evening or afternoon or any time of day that you could be watching this. Bye!